Thank you for joining Cyrus's Free Training Fridays webinar. I'm Matt Medley, a Senior Support Engineer with Cyruson, and with me is Justin Workman, who's also a Senior Support Engineer. Today we're going to look at logs of some of our popular applications, what to look for, where they're located, and a couple of best practices that work for our applications. First things we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of the console apps and look at the logs for the console apps and move through a couple of other applications and then finish off with the service portal, since that's our largest product with logging and so forth. So Justin, we'll get started with sharing your screen out and get started on the logs.
All right. I'll take control. All right, Matt, can you see it?
1 second here. Yes, sir.
All right, so I do want to start with Notify Analyst. It's definitely one of our most popular console apps. And as you can see here in the general settings, you can set the log path that you choose. And it is probably best to use UNC instead of local. That's what I've done here, but it is local to this server. But we'll take this path and go to run and paste that in. And then there you can see I've got logs for Notify Analyst. And of course, with Notify Analyst, every time you change assignment to an incident, change assignment to an SR, activities, all of the above, it generates a notification and thus a log file. And if you look at the most recent, or when a support group changes as well, you see that a service request changed. It just shows that the support group changed, just a log to show what happened, and then naturally a notification would have fired to that support group as well. So that's Notify Analyst and the logs that it creates.
No, it should be, I'm sorry, Justin, I didn't mean to cut you off, but with that log file or the log folder having that many logs in it, we probably should clean those up at some point.
Absolutely. I do highly recommend setting up some kind of workflow or automated task that will keep the size of this folder in check, because especially with Notify Analyst, it does tend to create a lot of logs, because every action regarding support group changes or assignment changes does generate a log file, and that folder can certainly get out of control really fast. So I would highly recommend setting up some kind of automation to manage that, specifically Notify Analyst, if not, other logs, but definitely that one, because it creates so many logs, because there's so many actions that it captures.
Okay.
And then the other console app I want to look at is Asset Management. Up here in the miscellaneous tab, you get the workflow log path, and that is going to generate logs for the hardware asset sync, software asset sync, et cetera, et cetera. And if we go to that path, same thing here. You can use UNC or you can use local. Best practice is probably to use UNC, but it is local to this server. And then there you can see my hardware asset sync ran yesterday at 2 p.m. I'm not sure why it runs in the middle of the day. And I do want to point out here, you can see I'm using Configuration Manager Trace Log Tool, CM Trace for short. If you're in this SCCM world at all, you're very familiar with this tool. And one of the great things about CM Trace is it highlights errors. Now, this is not an actual error, but it looks for any line that contains the word error and highlights it in red. And anything that's not an error that has a warning, it highlights in yellow. So it's a really great logging tool for logs that are fairly small. If the logs get very large, it does it does tend to get a little more shaky. But for 20 megs and under, CM Trace is a great tool for viewing and poring over logs, as we sometimes have to do.
What are a couple of errors that they may find in this log specifically that they could look for?
Errors in the hardware asset sync log. Sometimes, well, you'll see a lot of warnings usually for skips. If I don't have anything like that, I don't think. Let me see. Yeah, I'm not going to have any warnings. You'll see relationships that don't get created for one reason or another. Usually, I don't know. It can vary pretty wildly, but
Yeah.
it will show warnings for relationships that it skips. It will skip the hardware asset sync log. Will skip machines that. Well, there are several criteria that can generate skips, but those skips will be highlighted in yellow in CM Trace because they'll be identified as a warning.
Perfect.
And not anything necessarily to worry about, but it's definitely something to check out.
Okay.
And then if there's any actual failures for whatever reason, like for example duplicates is something we see a lot with asset management, especially hardware asset sync workflow. And those will be highlighted in red. It couldn't commit due to duplicate. I don't know, the exact verbiage varies a little bit, but it will say couldn't commit due to this is a duplicate machine essentially. And those
Okay.
will be highlighted in red and CM Trace.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then finally, I wanted to look at the portal logs.
And while you're
And
bringing,
first, before we jump into the,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was going to
No, go
mention
ahead.
while you're bringing up the portal here, do you want to go over the benefits of Notepad++ versus using the CM Trace tool?
Well, with Notepad++, if the logs get large, like I said, 20 plus megs, I think is territory for using Notepad++. And anything that's that large, Notepad++ is going to handle a lot better than CM Trace. And of course, I'm not going to have any logs of that size. But let's see if this. As you can see, this is only 4 megs, and it's taking it a little while to load all that data. And of course, it's it's tagging those warnings and errors and all that, and that that does take some time. So as the file size grows, that's just more work the application has to do. Whereas if I open that with Notepad++, opens right up, no problem. So
Big performance.
yeah. So the first thing I want to highlight when it comes to logging for the portal is if you go into the web config file, and of course with editing the file itself, you want to use Notepad++, or Notepad works fine as well. Notepad++ will do a little bit of highlighting, and also it'll give you the line numbers, which is helpful, especially if you're on a support call and we're like, hey, we want to change this value on line, ultimately we're going to be changing line 45 here. So the line does help if if you're looking at this for the first time and we're like, hey, just jump to line 45. There you go. So the first thing I'm going to do here is.
Sorry, but Notepad++ will
I'm sorry.
also tell you if you don't have admin rights to that log file or to the config file. I'm sorry.
Correct.
Prompt you if you want to switch
Correct.
to.
When I go to save this file, it will ask me if it'll check if I'm an administrator, and if I'm not, it will let me switch right here. This file cannot be saved and it may be protected. Do you want to watch Notepad++ in administrator mode? And in fact, I do, and it's going to relaunch in the administrator context and let me save that file, which Notepad, regular Windows Notepad, will not do. And I do want to highlight what I'm doing here. I'm changing the logging level value for the web console log to all. Before I save this, if we go look at the log itself, it's going to be rather small. It's only going to have, well, I had it turned up at one point in the recent feature, but if I delete that and Do note I have not yet saved this change to all. If I go into the portal, it will start logging. Well, it's only going to log errors at this point. It may not actually generate a file because it's only going to log errors because the level value is still set to error here. I have it saved.
It looked like
It
a log
actually
calculated right before you minimized your screen.
did it.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yep.
but as you can see, 0K. Nothing but errors at this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the level value up. We're going to save that. And now anything I do in the portal, anything is going to generate traffic in this file.
Now, when you modify logging level to all, do you need to restart the website?
No, it starts logging immediately.
Sure.
It's validating licensing. Every action that the portal takes, essentially, if the logging level is turned to all, will get logged in here. So that's the web console log. Level value on 45 if you got Notepad++, change error to all. And you probably do want to change it back again. You know, changing it to all is a good troubleshooting step so you can see exactly what the portal is doing. To troubleshoot if you're having an error in the portal, you can change that to all. And it's a good troubleshooting step, but I do recommend turning it back to error because it can grow rather rapidly. See, I've already at 145K and I've only clicked 2 or 3 times in the portal. So you can imagine if that was left to all, it would get large rather fast. And then the other log file we're going to look at for the portal is the cache builder log, and it's in bin and logs. There's the cache builder log, but I do want to do the same thing with it and change the logging level to all, same way. And I want to make sure if you do try to turn the cache builder log up, make sure you're selecting syrson.cachebuilder.windowservice.exe.config versus syrson.cachebuilder.service.exe.config. This is the one that is actually running, and so that's the one we want to change. And the same thing here, we're looking for the level value. This is the level of the logging application. We use Log4net, and this is the level that we're setting. And again, I want to change that to all. And for this one, you do have to actually restart the service. So I will go do that. Cache builder. Oh, and it's not even running, so there's nothing to worry about there. It will start up with the new setting. And if we go back here, now this log should be growing rather rapidly. Actually, I've got all kinds of errors in here. My asset management group, which is one of my key groups in the portal, analysts, asset manager group, knowledge manager, announcement, localization manager, those are the key groups. And if Cache Builder can't find those, it will fail. It'll stop running. See, it says, please select valid groups and restart the Cache Builder. And I actually recently deleted this group. So what I'm going to have to do is go into the portal as an admin and set that group back. So that's a fantastic highlighting of CM Trace. As you see there, this is an error and it's highlighted in red. So
It makes it easy when you're scrolling through hundreds of lines of log entries to see what you need to get based on. Yeah.
Certainly does. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to set a group that makes sense. I may have to go find one. All right, I'll just set it to analysts.
Another benefit of CM Trace is you can filter by error or you can filter by warning. And that's a good one too.
Right. Yeah, the filters are good too. So I'm going to switch my asset managers to analysts. And I Actually, another good practice when you're juggling cache builder logs is actually to rename them, like I've done here, with a date stamp. It's the 27th. Oh, my numbers. That's didn't work out quite like I wanted, but you get the idea. Date stamp the log, that way when you start it back up, it generates a fresh clean log, and hopefully when we go into this one we won't have those errors. Beautiful. It's now going through and doing what it does. Cache builder is going to pull in your users, configuration items, everything that the portal needs to interact with Service Manager. And so that's the cache builder log. And fortunately, there's no error. And see, here's another. I mean, CM trace can get shaky, especially on a machine that's resource challenged like this VM in my lab is.
And the same best practice applies for this log path as the other one, as far as once you're done troubleshooting cache builder issues.
Definitely. Set it back to error. All right, and I've already saved. Close that. Restart the service. And actually, I'm going to go rename that again. And you'll see once I rename it, 427.18.2, because it's the second one. Oh. Well, I'm not able to stop the service, unfortunately. But if I was able to, for whatever reason, my machine is not cooperating. If I was able to stop the service, I would generate a new log. I would rename this log file the same way I did the first time. I would get a fresh new log file once I started the service back, and it would stay at 0. It wouldn't move because there's no errors. There's nothing to report. And a lot of times we see people with cache builder logs that have zero data, and they think there's something wrong, when in actuality that's perfect. If your cache builder log is empty, that's a good sign. Cache builder's not finding any reason to complain, and everything should be working well, at least when it comes to caching the items from Service Manager.
Perfect. Now, everything that you did just now to go into the cache builder log and change the logging level to error or to all, that's made easier using the SMP helper tool, right?
Definitely. And I'll show that real quick. Well, I've got to run it as admin. Here it's coming now. Yeah, cache builder, you can set the error, the logging level here, instead of pouring through that file like we did. You can check to see what level you're at. You can set it. Cache builder log has been set to all. Outstanding. This is reading the file in real time. Same with the web console. You can get the current status. I set it to error once we were done before, and you can set it to all now. Get current status, and it immediately shifts. So I'm going to set those back to error, just like we said, as a good practice, so the files don't grow very large.
It's definitely a valuable tool to have in your environment. That application is on our community under the Saracen Uploads.
Yep.
Perfect.
And that's about it.
Okay. Let me finish sharing my screen here. Perfect. Okay. So that does conclude the training that we have for today. Are there any questions that anybody may have? Okay, Justin, the question that we have is, at this time, is there any type of automated solution for log maintenance, either for the web config log or the cache builder log, or even for Notify Analyst or the asset management? Do we have any type of automated solution in place right now?
We don't have. I'm going to take the control back over. We don't have any automated solution, especially for notify analyst logs. I mean, I would recommend, even a simple task scheduler task on the machine with, a simple script that could check dates, sizes, that kind of thing to manage those logs. And like I said, those can get um, fairly substantial in quantity. Even though they're small, you got a ton of them, and it's going to add up over time. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. And like I said, a simple task scheduler task with a script that can manage that is definitely recommended. But when it comes to the portal logs, if we go back here, I'll just look at the cache builder config real fast. Once again, Windows service, not regular service. You can set thresholds for sizing here. So if I wanted to set that to a lower threshold or a higher threshold even, this is the size threshold that it's going to roll over on. Create a new one. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Okay, so for people that have a large environment that are getting hundreds of log files, if they wanted to, they could come in and change the threshold to say 200 megabytes, and that could lower the amount of log files that they get. Or if they wanted to get more smaller log files, they would lower this to 25 or 30 megabytes.
Right. Oh yeah, I would say, I mean, if you're gonna deviate from the default of 100, I would err towards lower versus higher.
Okay, that's perfect. Appreciate you showing us that.
Yep.
Are there any questions do we have?
And I'll switch back to you, Matt.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Well, I think at that time, this concludes our Free Trading Fridays webinar for log files and what to look for.
One more thing
okay,
I do want to mention. We do have formal training as well as a Syrson consulting service.
Okay.
So if there's any formal training that you're interested in, especially around asset management, I think is one of the biggest ones that we offer. Definitely reach out, team@syrson.com, and we can look at getting that set up for you.
Definitely. The community is also a great place to look for other things as well, maybe customizations that other customers have done with our products and seeing other layouts and maybe finding answers to complicated situations that you may have in your environment. So definitely look at our community. It's a great place. There's a lot of activity. It's very active, and engagement is very good on our community as well.
Yep, agree completely.
Yeah. You have anything else, Justin?
That's it for me.
All right, that's it for me too. I appreciate everybody joining the call today, and I hope that today's webinar was beneficial for you. Like Justin mentioned, if you have any questions or want to trial any of our products, you can email us at team@syrson.com, and we can go from there. Thank you for joining today. Everybody have a great day.